Hey, Lynn. I was
Betsy,
I was worried I was on the wrong
I'm
meeting.
gonna be cooking a little bit. So I'm gonna turn off my camera and I have my headset on and I'm just gonna participate like that.
Sounds good.
Okay. Those guys are much cuter to look at anyway.
Uh, I disagree, but they are very cute. Hi, Luba. Lilia. Hey, Todd.
Hello, hello.
Oh,
It wouldn't let me speak or turn my camera on until I agreed to the recording. So
Oh, right. Right. I saw that just recently. Yes. Hey, Doug.
Doug's got you beat tonight,
Let
Dick.
me, yeah. Okay, let me try again. Hi, Betsy. Hi, everybody.
I could read your lips. I knew what you were
Yeah,
saying.
yeah, you have to turn off that mic, on that mic, don't you?
Doug, I was just saying, you've got Dick Burkhart beat tonight as far as being farthest away.
so
Yeah,
where's Doug
Betsy's
now?
pretty far away.
Is he down in
yeah,
Central America or something?
Belize. So, yeah, yep.
Yeah.
I think even the tulips are done,
Betsy's also in South America.
kind of. Otherwise known as Southern America. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Mighty fine down here. But I hear, Doug, that the tulips are looking good in Spokane, so we really need to get back.
We
See,
do. Yep.
Luger is nodding. You don't want to miss
Yep.
the lilacs, right? So,
Yep. Yep. That's
It's,
right.
it's the tulips in the Skagit Valley are their peak right now, apparently.
ah,
Yeah.
Nice. Wow,
okay.
nice.
Mhm.
Good, good.
Dick, I'm really glad you're feeling better. Very
Yeah.
glad to read that.
Mhm.
Very good.
Yeah, my cataract surgery did not go well, but it's finally starting to resolve itself.
Good.
It's like I'll get some new glasses and maybe 2 or 3, maybe 3 weeks, and the doctor said, "Well, your swelling is just a tiny bit left now." It really got me down there for quite a while though. But
Yeah. Ugh.
and I still can't read the newspaper very well, but it's gradually resolving itself.
Hmm.
Mm.
I
Hey,
bet your life is better now that you can't read the newspaper.
Well, the problem is I used to read all these books and everything else,
Oh, yeah.
I can still read them with a magnifying glass, and
Mm.
some days my eyes will be good enough I can sort of skim it and make it out.
Hey,
Mhm.
Tom and Lilia, by the way, not sure if I greeted you. Very glad to see you on the meeting. Thanks for being here. We missed you.
Yes, I know. I was crazy busy. I signed up for too many things at once, but
I understand this problem.
my schedule's clearing up, so
Good deal.
I'm here.
Great. Very good. And there's Tom.
Hi,
Yeah,
Tom.
I had trouble getting everything working now.
Catherine told me she'd be just a few minutes late, but I say we go ahead and call the meeting to order. We have enough folks here, I think, to get started. So we've got a tiny bit. If you've got everybody got all those documents I sent you, there was quite a handful. Because I don't plan to share via Zoom. I didn't get the password and all that stuff. And so it's probably easier if you just open up the documents yourself. And we do have some documentation to go through tonight. The first thing is the agenda. And you notice that Karen Dornsteele is not on our call. She wrote me and asked that we postpone item 9, which is the endowment team update, until May's meeting. So I am striking that, proposing we strike that from our agenda for tonight. That frees up 15 minutes, so we might be able to finish on time or have more time for discussion. So,
Okay,
yes, Tom?
I'd like to add an agenda item that I did mention in our things. I'd like to add an agenda item 10C,
Okay,
which was a bylaw amendment to bring to the congregation that we discussed a couple of 3 months ago about the public relations that were overly restrictive with regard to the use of the church name. So,
you included it in your document. It just didn't make it on the agenda. Is that right?
yeah, so I just want to add it on the agenda.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. I was just reading through all those things. I didn't realize it wasn't there. Thanks, Tom.
Yeah.
Anything else to add or remove from the agenda?
I think I had asked about what's going to happen for as far as delegates to your general assembly.
I'll put that in my section. I'm sorry, Dr. Dick, I forgot to put that here. UUA delegates. We can discuss that during my section. How about that?
But yeah, shouldn't be a big thing.
Right.
Betsy, I've got a timekeeper question.
Mhm.
But the fact that Karen is not, scratch number 9 is helpful. It just seems like 10 minutes for item 10 was probably insufficient.
Yes. So now we have, somewhere around 20 minutes, it looks like, if it just merged 9 and 10 together.
Yeah, actually 25, yeah.
I think 11 should be part of that expansion because there's 3 that are pretty routine, and then there's one that might draw, create quite a bit of conversation.
Yeah, actually, yeah, that's what I meant to say, was that 11 is the one that yeah, seemed to inadequate. Yeah.
Yeah, it was only like 10 minutes. So, folks,
Okay.
thank you for asking that question. Doug's going to keep time tonight. He volunteered to help with that since Catherine's late, and she's done it this year so far. So thanks for doing that, Doug. If we get to the end of our hour-and-a-half meeting time and we need a little bit more time, then somebody will make a motion to continue the discussion. We kind of talked about this procedural thing. If we can't quite get through all of our agenda items, so that some of these have been lingering around and we need to wrap them up. This is we have only one more regular board meeting this year. Is that right? Do we have a regular board meeting in June? Not sure. But we have our annual meeting in June.
Yeah, the June board meeting would be after the annual meeting.
Okay, okay.
We have one.
So you're right, okay. That's true, it is. Okay, thanks for all that. Any other agenda changes? We ready to approve it as it is, as it has been amended? Striking number 9 and changing the times, adding the times to essentially 10 and 11.
Yeah. So move if you need a motion.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Okay. Well, I don't know. Do we usually go through all that? And yeah, no, I think we're good. We're agenda approved for Marilyn's sake. And hi, Marilyn. Really glad to see you on the meeting tonight. And Sue too, and Anne. Thank you for being here. Okay, so that's our agenda. Now, the next item is to approve our minutes from the 27th, March 27th. So any changes to the amendment, or I'm sorry, the minutes? None here.
Nope.
Okay. Minutes are approved from the March meeting. Thanks. Todd? Todd, you're on mute. Yeah, right.
I don't have anything major to report this month. Perhaps the most interesting thing that I've done is I've been in contact with Stephen Hassan, who is the author. He's a leading cult expert and has been for over 25 years, and wrote a book called Cults and Mind Control, which I found really fascinating in comparison to what's going on in the UUA today. And I wrote an article for Liberal Beacon, and I sent it to him, and he was very interested, responded immediately. Since then, I've been reading his book, The Cult of Trump, which is also a pretty daring book on his part. But yesterday, he interviewed me for his podcast, so they'll be editing that, and I'll let you guys know when it's done and when it's out, that kind of thing. But really interesting fellow. I'm in preliminary communication with having him as our keynote presenter at our October NAUA meeting. So more to come on that.
Yeah, I have a comment on that because I read, can't remember which of his books it was. If it was the Trump book or an earlier book. I remember he talked a lot about. I think he'd been through the ringer with Scientology or one of those groups. I can't remember which group it was.
He was a Mooney.
A Mooney, and that was the good unification. I get those
Yeah.
things because I read this 2 or 3 years ago. But I was very impressed of how he took that on, and he realized how he analyzed how he'd been sucked in himself to this. Now how we needed to deal with these kinds of things. So I think he would be a very good person there.
Yeah, he did contact the UUA, ask their opinion, and surprisingly, he got a hold of somebody. That's not unusual, but he just told me that they were very confused. They said, "What, us, a cult? What are you talking about?" So,
Yeah, I'll send you. I have my review of that book somewhere. I'll send you a copy of that review.
thank you.
Anyway.
Thank you.
Is that in his book as a classic response when confronted with, "Are you a cult? You're a cult." I can imagine that it is, but I don't know. I haven't read his stuff. Who, us? Who, me?
Yeah, Tom.
Yeah, Stephen Hassan's not to be confused with our former commissioner, Stephen Hassan, who was notorious for climbing out of his county commissioner window to avoid an interview by the press, I assume.
Wow.
Not the same guy. Yeah.
Not the same, right?
Yeah. Welcome, Catherine. Good to see you. Okay, anything else, Todd? Thank you. That was interesting.
Yeah.
Righty. Okay. Moving along. Okay, I have several things to discuss in my president's sort of status update in the agenda. One is the annual meeting. I mentioned it a few minutes ago. It's on June 9th. So there's a couple of things that we need to organize there. I may as well tell you right now, I did call Gordon Diddings and he has agreed to be our moderator. So, hey, yes, that part is addressed. I guess that's actually down in any other business, but we got that part done. So what we'll need to do is there's a couple of deadlines. There's a April 28th deadline for, I actually put this in our agenda. It's a deadline for our members to submit proposed bylaw amendments. And the general process is that they submit the bylaw amendment. They have to there's kind of some rules about getting other people to sign on to them, essentially. So it's not just a one-off person. They've already done it's like getting a petition signed to change a law or whatever, right? Same idea. But then there's another step where our Board of Trustees reviews them, I guess, and makes for consistency. I'm going to leave it there. There's a few more words there, and we can take that up when we actually get a smaller group of us together to be that group to review them for consistency. So so that's one task that we have before the June the annual meeting. And then Rebecca has already sent out a list of all of the reports. We have a fairly standard agenda at this point for the annual meeting. Lots of reports, president's report, treasurer's report. Dick, I think I sent you the ones that I've done. There are other examples that we can, help with. But we will sort of need to go over that as a board and as a group and make sure we've all assigned all the roles and have everything organized for that meeting. But and we usually set up a little committee or a little group of us to sort of work on that. Volunteers would be awesome, especially to review the bylaw, proposed bylaw amendments from the members, assuming any show up this year. You never know, but probably. It seems like they almost always do. In my 4 years on the board this round, I think we've had some every year. So we may as well be ready for it. Yeah, Tom?
Well, in one of my handouts, I suggested that we have a committee to organize the agenda and all that stuff. Now, maybe if Rebecca is doing all that, we don't need that, but I think we do need an oversight committee to make sure all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed with regard to the notices and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And that would be something that you as a chair could appoint. And then I actually have a suggested motion for us to establish a committee, if we want to do that, to establish a team or a committee of 3 to handle any amendments that do come in. So when and if it's appropriate, I can make that motion for handling amendments if they do come in.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I don't know that we need a motion for the committee today. Let's see, what is today? The 24th. So 28th, Wednesday, like Sunday, that they need to be submitted, and then we have to review them. I don't know the rest of the timing. So I guess we will need a little group pretty soon.
Yeah, because the board meeting next month, unless we move it up, the board meeting's on the 24th, and they have up till the 28th to submit them. So we won't have another board meeting. And it would behoove us in this meeting to decide how we would handle any amendments that come in from the members, because we won't have a board meeting after that deadline.
It's actually on the 22nd, the board meeting in May. So yeah, let's get anybody interested in being on this group, to review bylaws? I'll be on the group for sure.
Well, I move Betsy Rush, Tom Mosier, and another person. I suggest Doug Deaton as vice president, but not necessarily, and Todd as our advisor, to be designated as a committee to review any of the members submitted bylaw amendments, and that they be empowered by majority vote of the board on this motion to decide to approve, reject, or assist the petitioner to revise that any amendments.
There a second? I second it. Discussion? Me and Doug and Tom. Notice what Tom said in his motion about advise on, how did it say it at the end there, Tom? The petitioner to revise the language of their amendment for consistency. That's really our role here.
Yeah. And that, the reason for that, let me shut my phone off here. The reason for that, if it's a really good amendment, but it's just not written well or positioned well in the bylaws, that we could get feedback to that person at whatever level seems appropriate in order to make it pretty effective and efficient to go through it at the annual meeting, so that we don't have a drawn out thing of amendments and separating a big amendment into 2 parts or 3 parts and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Todd?
Yeah, I'm not I'm happy to be part of it, but I'm not 100% sure I'd be comfortable with just a committee deciding yay or nay of the board without full discussion of the board. And I know timing is obviously the issue here, but maybe even if we had any, we could call a special meeting if the team recommended that we perhaps were to nix one or something like that, so that the entire board is on the same page with it. It could be rather controversial if something gets nixed and
It's left on everybody. Yeah,
make sure everybody's in agreement.
good point.
Well, I think that would boil down to a question, would the board, that's obviously the best answer. I was operating on the assumption that it would be difficult to get a special board meeting because that requires notice, et cetera, and the board could assign to a committee to act on its behalf. But I think that's what we need to discuss. Either withdraw the motion, which I could do as long as the second agrees, and go somewhere else. So, yeah, we need some discussion.
I mean, I might be making too much of it. I just thought I'd throw that out.
I think if everything is in by the 28th as a deadline, we could probably plan a just in case meeting for the first week in May to just see what we have to work with. That is a real short meeting. Would people be open to that?
Yep.
I like that idea.
Yeah, I would be in favor of that if we identified a date with where we could give sufficient notice for other persons to attend. That would be a primary reason of doing that, to be as open as possible. So I will, if that's the mode that people are looking at, anybody else want to speak up whether they concur or not? And then I can withdraw my motion with the second agreeing to do that.
That was your second. I agree. I like Catherine's idea of let's just go ahead and schedule a meeting, a short meeting in May for us, and just have it ready to go, just like Catherine says. Should amendments arise, and the whole board can attend. We'll set it up for an hour on board meetings on the 22nd. Today's the 24th. How about do we want to stick with a Wednesday? Is there any bad day of the week for anybody?
Wednesday's fine with me.
I would suggest the 1st of May so we could get on it as soon as possible. Well, that would be difficult. How about in order to give notice? How about the 8th of May?
How about the 8th? Okay, May 8th.
At what time?
What works for you, Lilia? Is this good?
After school hours. I usually get home about 4,
Okay.
unless I pick my kid up, then But you guys can plan something after school hours and I'll try to make it work.
Would 5 be better?
I think 4 typically works. You said the 8th, right?
We did, yeah.
You're allowed, Betsy, as a small board to just more or less throw out a motion to this effect, and then say if there's no objection, it's a done deal.
Yeah. Let's do that. Let's have a motion to meet as a board, a small board, whatever, as a group on the 8th of May at 4 o'clock for an hour to review amendments as they arise, if they arise. We'll probably use the meeting for, we'll just keep it on the books in case there's other, trying to decide if we still need a subgroup to do anything for the meeting, to prepare for the annual meeting. Maybe not.
So who would put together the agenda, for instance? Is that something that you would do as the chair?
Yeah, we've done it as a team before in prior years. We all got together and put together the agenda. So like I said, it's pretty relatively fixed, well known, but we can do that in that meeting too.
Yeah.
Draft. Yeah. Okay, does that sound good, everybody?
Yep.
Yeah.
All in favor? Okay. All right, so moving on to the other stuff in my list to discuss. I wanted to just share what I knew about the generosity campaign. I know if you're at church, you can watch Robert's wonderful thermometer as it gets more red on it throughout the month. But I just wanted to share what Lynn told me, or Lynn, you can give us an update because you told me on Saturday we were at 71 pledging units and 190,000, I think, right?
Yep, and that's all I know right now myself. I'm gonna be connecting with Rebecca tomorrow, and hopefully it's gone up. I know it has already, so
Good, very good.
going
Uh,
good.
Reminding everybody if and when, depending on how the campaign goes, there may be a need for a budget summit too. So that'll be sometime in May too. This is kind of the busy time of the church year. It gets busy getting prepared with the budget and the annual meeting. So of course, those are optional for the board, but highly encouraged for you to attend if it's needed. And that's, if we have to make adjustments in what we wished for in our budget based on what happens in our pledge campaign. And then the last,
Can I just add one thing really quickly?
Sure.
And that is, so next week is the last official week as far as the Nourishing Liberal Religious and Home. But following that Sunday, that's the time when the office will do what Rebecca refers to as office determined pledges. And she will be contacting and connecting with those people who have ongoing pledges and often just don't tune in or even know that we have a generosity campaign going on right now. So if you attend church on Sunday and you don't see it reach 330,000, which is our goal for, that's the top of the thermometer, don't panic because we have about 160 pledging units and we are only at 71 right now. And that is not likely to increase an incredible amount over the next few days. So the pledging or the generosity campaign it's not uncommon at all for us to go at least another week to really determine what that final number is before there's a decision made to have a second budget summit. So I just wanted to clarify that.
That's really good info. Thank you, Lynn. Did you have something to add, Tom?
Well, it's a kind of a question, and I think it's things that Dick and I have both talked about that before, and that is in that period of time that you mentioned about reaching out to people who haven't contacted us back. I'm certainly willing to personally call 8 to 10 people. And is there anything like that in the plans to take advantage or ask people, some board members, other people to do that?
It's not in the plan right now, Tom, and that would be likely if that did happen or we did come to that, it would be following what Rebecca refers to and has been going on for years as office determined. So those are people who pledge regularly or pay regularly. They just don't view it as so we're not going seeking new pledges from people.
No.
So so we just need a little bit of time to clarify that with people. And then if there are people just completely out of touch, I'm not sure that you would have any more success than the office would. But we can certainly talk about that. I'll talk with Rebecca about that. But thank you for the offer.
Okay. Any other questions for Lynn or budget, generosity campaign?
Yeah, I'd like to back up what Tom was just saying. I think sometimes that personal contact can make a difference. There are lots of there are even former UUs who have dropped out, but maybe if they're contacted, they might say, maybe I should get back involved or something like that. Just sometimes a little nudge here and there, can have an effect, and that it may be true with younger people. And I'm thinking right now of an example that happened last week in Seattle. We had a little kind of action. We call it tax day to tax day to Earth Day. And we started out on tax day, April 15th. We had an action at our representative's office, Adam Smith. He's in his offices in Renton in an office building. He was formerly chair of the House Armed Service Committee when Democrats controlled it. And we decided we were going to talk about the Green New Deal and things like that on the tax day, better spending of our resources. And we thought we might get maybe a dozen people. It's pretty hard to get people turned out. Well, we had over 24 people. And there was a young man who seemed really bright and interested, and I'd never seen before. We started talking. And it turned out he'd been raised as a UU. And he lived pretty close to some of us too. So in fact, the church I go to in Seattle, so I left him my card and said, well, maybe we can get him back involved because he was a justice kind of person. And then Adam Smith, he's a good Democrat in many ways, but many of us have really parted ways on what's going on in Gaza right there. And he takes the AIPAC line, and there's a huge amount of upset in Seattle over that. And some of us have been looking for someone to run against him on that issue, and we couldn't find anyone. Well, in the middle of this demonstration, a young woman shows up, 35 years old with a kid, a former UU. But she wasn't active either, you see. I bet there are a lot of people like that.
Right, we can find them.
For Congress.
Yeah, we can find them. That would be great. You're right. You're right. Thanks for sharing that, Dick. Good stories. Dick, I also want to turn to you and others, I suppose, about the UUA delegation from our church. I think it's probably time the meeting, I haven't kept track, but we usually, here's where we try to solicit folks to attend a UUA meeting, is usually in our board meeting. So I don't know if you had anything specific to add to that. Dick, are you willing to go this year?
Yeah, well, my wife and I are already sending our fees to the UUA, but if I'm not a delegate, I'm taking those fees back. Put it that way. That's the only reason I said I'm in. And we very well may end up as delegates for the Saltwater Church, which I'd prefer, just to, I think it'd be good to spread out my efforts here and not just have Spokane. But that's not yet clear. And they had a website, a form on their website that said, well, you can start applying in January, but then you said, well, we have to, but wait, we got to update the form. And then a couple of weeks ago, I kept looking at it. A couple of weeks ago, I noticed that, oh, the form was due April 1st, and we're going to talk about the delegates at the end of this, at their meeting, which is board meeting today. And they still hadn't fully updated the form, but we submitted anyway. So I don't know if this is just purely accidental on their part or if they're trying to outmaneuver us or whatever. But if that doesn't turn out, I'd want to be a delegate for this church. And our minister has been trying to keep. It seems like she's been trying to totally avoid the issue. There was some discussion last year. We had a couple of meetings on delegates and that kind of thing. And since then, the minister and board have done absolutely nothing, as if it didn't even exist. But there, the thing is, should we encourage someone to run for the UUA board or some other office? And I've been feeling, I knew I ran for the nominating committee last year, but because of this, this cataract surgery and everything else, I've been feeling pretty down this year. But I just started perking up a bit the last week. But so I sent out something to ask other people around the UUA if they wanted to run it, because I had some expertise in how this is done. And I haven't got much response so far, except there's one man, I think he's from Gainesville, Florida, Paul Avery. He said, count me in. So so I sent him more information on exactly how you run as a petition candidate. If anyone here wants to do that, It's not that hard, except the deadline is May 1st and you need 50 signatures. And you can't have more than 10 from one congregation. And in my case, I was able to do that in less than a week last year because I'm on several national listservs. There's a UMIAC listserv and the UU 7 Principles just listservs and whatnot. So I was able to do that quickly. If anyone wants to do that, what it means is that you put out your prospectus to whatever listservs you're involved in and say, will you support me? And then you circulate a little form. It's a one-page form now where they have to fill out their name and the church they're in and sign it and say that they're supporting you. And then they send that to you as an attachment. And then you collect all these attachments and send it in to Bill Young, the secretary, before May 1st. And that's your petition. Of course, you want more than 50. I had almost 100 last year. But these forms, to do the form, you have to, it's a PDF, you print it out. You have to physically print it out and then fill it in physically. And then once that's done, you either scan it back in and then send it as attachment to the candidate.
Pardon me, but
Or
we are
you-
running late and,
Yeah, or you photograph it like that. It's just telling you if anyone wants to do it. It's not hard to do, but there's a process involved.
Okay, maybe we can, if anybody's interested, talk to Dick. Sounds like he's got all the details. on
I've
what
got
it would
all worked
take.
out
Yeah,
with
yeah,
that.
yeah.
But I don't know if, have you heard of anyone else, Todd, who might be interested or in actually running for the board or any other position?
No, I haven't, but I'm pretty much out of UU stuff at this point, so.
And then what I circulate to other people, I said, don't expect to win. That's not the point. Is that if you actually run for a position, there'll be a candidate's forum. And you get to be part of that candidate's forum and their questions are asked. So you get to be, it's only one forum, but at least it is a forum. And you can present a point of view there. And also on the UUA website, you can put in a little like 200-word bio or something like that, where you can also say something about your platform. So it's,
Okay.
yeah.
Very cool. Thank you, Dick. Appreciate that.
Mhm.
Moving along on our agenda, though, we got to get to this proposed email policy. Now, this is another of the documents that was sent out with the agenda in the whole group of documents. Now, this is a policy for the Board of Trustees. You've heard us talk about email policy. I think we talked about it in our last meeting, but we refer to it. And this is a proposed set of rules for how our email policy would actually work. So hopefully you guys have had a chance to read through that. And what I would like to do is make a motion to add this to our Board of Trustees policies and procedures.
second,
Okay, now discussion. Tom?
I think I think basically overall it would be appropriate. Where, you know, we need to figure out where, if this is approved, but I do have two comments. And it's kind of my kind of stickler thing. Where's the rules that back this up? Everything seems fine except the statement in the beginning of compliance with bylaws of our church, because there isn't anything in our bylaws that address this subject. And it's continuing on with stipulate that all board business be conducted during regularly scheduled announced meetings. There isn't anything that stipulates that. And then on the very end, where violations may result in disciplinary action as defined in the governance documents or bylaws, we don't have any language like that. And I suggest that the policy would be as informative and useful as possible if the latter statement about disciplinary action was removed, and also that we didn't stipulate, that we didn't refer to compliance with our bylaws that stipulate something that's simply not there. And that it would still be meaningful to just start out with the purpose of this policy is to clarify appropriate use of emails.
Okay, so you're proposing to strike the first sentence of the purpose paragraph
Yeah.
And, looking
And-
for the bit
And
about,
under,
oh.
under number 6, strike the one under compliance. It says, that says violations will result in a disciplinary action as defined in our governance documents or bylaws.
Okay, okay. Those seem
Yeah,
like,
on that, I would just comment that I don't think it has to be in the bylaws yet, right? A policy, and if there's nothing in the bylaws, it doesn't matter, but there may at some point be something in the bylaws on both of those fronts, right? There could be a bylaw change that would then address something like this, which would make either the policy valid or needing to be changed according to the new bylaws. So it doesn't necessarily have to comply with the bylaws if there's nothing in the bylaws addressing those specific points.
Well, in response to that, if it does appear in the bylaws, since this would be a board policy, the board could immediately follow up with an adjustment to the policies that would be consistent with the bylaws. So,
Right.
any other thoughts on the contents of the policy? Prohibition of deliberation via email, permissible uses of emails as part of official records. I'm curious, Tom, you probably know, at the very end, it's review and amendment. This policy will be reviewed annually by the Board of Trustees and may be amended to adapt to new circumstances. Do we put that at the end of every policy, reviewed annually? We'd spend the whole year reading documents if that's what, I guess you don't have to
I
give
think the goal
everyone.
is, I think the goal is to keep the board familiar with the policy. So to review it and make sure it still works.
Yeah,
Not
There-
necessarily, doesn't necessarily have to be there, but it is a good idea for something that has this far-reaching communications significance to be reviewed regularly.
fair.
Yeah.
I'm trying to open my document it's not opening very fast for me here. My policy and procedures to see if there is in fact language for periodic or annual review. And it is opening up for me. But that would certainly be something that we could deal with, that there either be in the governance documents a periodic review of the whole document, or we could have just, once we figure out how to format this in the format consistent with the format for our policy and procedures, we could include it under this section. It's going to have to be a whole new section that we're going to have to come back and propose how it fits in with this, our existing document.
We have to make a proposal in order to format it into our existing policies and procedures, or pick the right chapter or heading or something.
Well, somebody needs to be responsible. Part of how we got in trouble, I'm sure Lynn can back me up in this, because what we found when we reviewed the last document was there was a hodgepodge of things being pasted here, cut and pasted here and cut and pasted it there. Some of it was overlapping and conflicting with other places and things like that. I don't think there's anything in the policy and procedures like this at all about email stuff. So it would probably be a section by itself. The question, where does it best fit? And we do have a section that is specifically about the board. It's called, where am I looking at? It's called the governance process. And it refers to board members' descriptions and board members' code of conduct, which it kind of fits under there. So it could be a substantial subsection under 3.3 board members' code of conduct.
Could we amend the motion to say that if approved, it would go into that section, so it's taken care of.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it would have to be formatted to match the kind of format of subparagraphs and subsections so that it would be consistent with the format that is there, which is 3.3 A, B, C, D, E, and F. So it would have to fit into that, or else it would just be like a barnacle on the outside of the hull of a ship.
I like the amended motion idea. Amend my motion to put it in the chapter that you just described. I don't want to make a motion about formatting it. Say we give that to the person that's actually putting it into the document.
Sure,
How about
that's. And are you suggesting that the sentences be dropped that we talked about?
I don't know. You spoke in favor of removing those sentences. Todd spoke in favor of keeping them. Is there any other discussion about those two sentences? This is reminding me of our bylaw days, Lynn. Tom, Catherine, remember? Oof. So the sentences that we're talking about are the first one that has the word stipulate in the middle of it. Tom's point is that it's not actually in the bylaws as written here. Todd's point, but it could be sort of. So
I guess I'd rather go with Tom as being a little bit simpler.
take it out.
Yeah, if there's ever a need to put it back in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if it's not a true statement, then it shouldn't be there.
Mhm.
Yeah, and the paragraph, the sentence right below it really gets to the heart of it. Foster transparency, maintain proper records, and uphold the integrity of our decision-making processes. So I'm okay with removing the first sentence too. What about the paragraph 6? Violations of this email policy may result in disciplinary actions as defined in the board's governance documents or bylaws.
Delete.
Thanks, Doug. Any other thoughts?
It's one of those situations. Who's gonna be the judge and jury?
Right, I know. It's that was one of the reasons we took a lot of stuff out of the bylaws, is because who can enforce that? Right.
Yeah,
It seems kind of punitive.
sounds kind of threatening, right?
Yeah. Whereas
It sounds
really
like
all it
really
really
way
needs,
to be accountability here.
yeah, just talking about it among ourselves is probably enough of a slap on the wrist anybody would need.
Right. In a volunteer organization, right?
Yeah.
Well, I just have one question. Why do we have that dungeon beneath the church if we're never gonna use
Well, there is a little group that's been asking for time to rent under there, but they're into that stuff.
Golly. Okay, I'm gonna restate my motion, see if I can get it right for Maryland ultimately, and for the rest of us too, which is that we adopt the email use policy as a board of trustees policy and procedure, excluding the first sentence in the first paragraph under purpose and the first sentence in section 6 under compliance, first bullet under section 6. And that we put this policy in the section of the policies and procedures called what, Tom?
3.3, let's see, 3.3, board members code of conduct.
Perfect. Into the board members code of conduct.
Mhm.
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
I second the changes.
Thank you. Good. Any other discussion? Shall we take a vote?
Yeah,
All in favor?
yeah.
Aye.
Aye. I think, let me see. 1, 2, 3,
Mhm.
4, 5. 5 in favor. Where's Catherine? Did she fall off?
Oh,
There she is.
Oh,
Ma-
there you
ma-
are at the top
yeah.
now. Sorry, Zoom keeps rearranging everybody. Ugh. Okay, 5 in favor. Motion passes. Okay. What's next on our agenda?
And let me add, I will take an effort over the next couple of 3 weeks to write in some kind of a formatting and see that it gets to Rebecca as one of our additions to our policy and procedures.
Much obliged. Thank you, Tom. Dick, I saw you sent us, you're next on the agenda. I saw you sent the quarterly reports from Rebecca, and you had a little summary in your email. Anything you want to add there about what's going on?
No, I went through those. They just came in today, but it looked pretty straightforward. As I say, she emphasized that she thought we were in good shape, that we would get that we normally get most people finishing off their pledge at the end of the fiscal year. So if we're a little bit behind now, that's not bad actually.
Okay.
She said we're at 93% now of where we should be at. I think that's 190,000 is come in versus it should be 203 or something like that. But she was not worried about that. So I
Okay.
don't know the experience of this church, but I'll take her word for that.
Been doing it a little while. Yeah.
That it sounds like we're okay shape financially.
Okay. All right, cool. Thank you.
And the other thing she mentioned was if you look, probably most of you haven't looked at, but there was a much bigger number for the music director than you would expect. And she said that was because of the special retirement package for Deb.
Okay, very cool.
But so beyond that, though, I didn't notice any other discrepancies or anything else. Everything is starting to make sense to me now.
Good. Doug, were you able to get to the ops team meeting this month?
Well, the ops team did not meet this month because Rebecca came down with COVID.
Oh, ugh.
Yeah, she's back at work. She's been back at work for how long, Todd? A couple
my
weeks, but
goodness,
anyway.
Been a couple of weeks at the most, yeah, maybe.
Yeah, and I communicated with her today, but she said, there wasn't going to be a very busy meeting anyway, and so there was no problem, and so there'll be a meeting next month.
Okie doke. All right, very good. I think we just made up all of our time with those two.
Yeah.
Thank you, Doug. Woohoo. So now on to item 10 on our agenda, a set of board proposed bylaw amendments for our June annual meeting. And I think pretty much all of these we've talked about before. We've amended the language in meetings like the Memorial Garden and the 7 principles. And there's a third about public relations, but please do refer to the document that was sent out with the agenda because they're all listed kind of neatly up at the top. It's agenda item 10. Thank you for this document, Tom. So we'll just go through each one of these and what we're doing now is as a group, as a board, we're saying here are the changes that we recommend to the bylaws for 2024's annual meeting. Well, actually, that's what we're going to decide right now, if we as a board want to put forward these bylaw amendments. Doesn't mean they're going to be bylaws. It's just that we're putting them out there as a board for the whole congregation to vote on in June. So the first one is, well, do you want to read through these, Tom? The first one, we've got a motion here for the Board of Trustees to present the following amendment. Section 8, UUCS shall establish and maintain in perpetuity a memorial garden.
Yes, that was for back. Yes, well, I would second that since you read it. And the comment is we proposed this language or very similar. We sent it to the Memorial Garden team. They sent it back saying they agree and in fact even offered to present it if necessary. So I think it's pretty much a done deal. We just need to vote formally to send this to the agenda for the annual meeting.
Any other discussion? I find it delightfully succinct.
Sounds good.
Okay, Shall we vote? All in favor?
I,
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Unanimous. Okay, motion passes. We'll submit this as a board proposed bylaw amendment in June. Okay. Tom, you want to take number 2? Or, sorry, B, the 7 principles?
yeah, and we didn't, we talked about, there was enough encouragement to add this to formalize a motion. And it would be essentially that I move that the board present the following bylaw amendment to the membership as Article 1, Section 3, and then renumber what goes after that. And I have to read it, unfortunately, but I'll read it very fast. We, the members of the UUC, affirm and promote the following as guidance for our church and ourselves. A, the inherent worth and dignity of every person. B, justice, equality, and compassion in human relations. C, acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth. A free and responsible search for truth and meaning. E, the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process in our church and in society at large. There's a small typo there. F, the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. And G, respect for the interdependent web of existence of which we are all a part. So we need a second.
Second.
Third.
Discussion?
Comment, just, this is picky, but it seems to me that there's a couple of words missing to make this flow kind of logically. I would suggest that it, at the beginning, members affirm and promote the following as our guiding principles for our church and ourselves.
Let's do that kind of a motion maker thing. I would agree with that if the second having been Dick, I guess.
Yeah, I'll agree with that.
That would be as our
Even
guiding.
though I was the third, not the second.
I would just say, and I'm fine with that too. But that is a divergence of how they have been used by the UUA, right? For the UUA, this was part of a covenant between congregations.
Yeah.
So to include the individuals in the bylaws to say that this is something, I'm not 100% sure we should do that, and it's. I guess the reason I say that is these principles are beautiful, absolutely. They're a wonderful articulation of an ancient religion that has not been articulated this same way for most of its history. But there are other ways to articulate our values. There are other principles that people would have in their lives, right? And they might say these things a different way. So I feel kind of odd about asking this to be an individual commitment to these versus a congregational commitment, right? That when somebody joins our congregation, they recognize this is what our congregation is about versus us requiring the individuals to adopt these in their own life.
So Todd, my objection to these, I believe they're really well written, of course. You said it very eloquently, Todd, about how beautiful they are. They're why I'm a Unitarian Universalist. But your objection is strictly to the and ourselves part of it, or
Yeah, I would say, I wouldn't say and ourselves. I can't remember how you phrased it, Doug. I thought it was good without the and ourselves if you would have just put a period at the end of our congregation, our church community, even something like that would work for me. It's really a sticking point. I mean, I shouldn't say sticking point. It's a stickly. I'm being a stickler. It's not gonna. My life's not gonna be ruined if you disagree and you decide something else on this. I'm just, as someone who has watched the evolution of this over the years, I would say that's a real divergence from how it's been used. And it's one thing the UUA has been trying to do, right, is to say that everybody has this covenant every individual has this covenant with the UUA, which we don't. It is a covenant between congregations, it is an organizational covenant, and these 7 principles is, by the way, as well as the 6 sources, which are also going to go, have been part of this, what is called, we covenant together to affirm these principles and these 6 sources.
Well, are you suggesting the introductory statement might be better said that the UUCS affirms and promotes the following as our guiding principles, period?
Colon.
Yeah, colon, excuse me.
Yeah, if that's okay with Doug, if that,
Absolutely, yeah.
getting at, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think words are important, and I get your point, Todd. I think well taken, and so we're not saying members, and we're not saying ourselves. Those are 2 words we're not going to use there.
Yeah, yeah. You know, so for example, I prefer to say that my religion is defined by my commitment to the inherent worth and dignity of every person that is upheld by creating systems of reason, freedom, and tolerance. And I can find that principle in every one of those 7 principles. Right. But that's just my way of articulating. I'm not saying the church should articulate it that way. But I want people to have the freedom to not see this as a creed, right, or a dogma that they have to subscribe to, but as a point of inspiration that if you're joining our church, understand this articulates what we are about, the heart of what we are about.
Which, if I may, is why I don't believe that it belongs in our bylaws. It is the heart of who we are. It is a statement of vision and principle. It's principles. And the bylaws are kind of boring governance sort of things. And it's not really, I don't think it's appropriate to be in the bylaws. That's my thought. It needs to be somewhere, which is the intent of us proposing this amendment, is to salvage something we see as important and beautiful and getting trampled and thrown aside by the UUA. And we depended on them to have this for us before, and now they're not. But I don't think bylaws is where it belongs.
Where would it belong? Where would you?
I don't know.
I would
I don't know.
comment on that too, is that usually bylaws normally do include a statement of principles, and often there's some kind of mission or principles or purpose, a statement of purpose and mission, so that anyone reading the bylaws will at least get an overview of what this organization is about. Maybe not all the detail, but so I think it is important to have something in there related to purpose and mission. And so in that sense, it does fit in.
And well, in support of that, Dick, I kind of, Article 1 is entitled Name, Purpose, and Governance. And it has a lot of, the UU Church is an active Washington nonprofit corporation dedicated to, the purpose is, we bring together religious liberals. It's kind of led of, this would be the 3rd, those were the 2 introductory paragraphs, this would be the 3rd one. And I don't think it's so out of place given the already existing nature of Article 1, which is name, purpose, and governance.
I suggest we go ahead and let the congregation decide. Let's propose it, but then argue it in June.
That's the intent, yes.
Yeah, we won't, again, we're not deciding whether to put it in the bylaws. We're deciding whether to propose it as an amendment. So yeah, we could just go ahead and take a vote on whether to propose the amendment and talk about it more with the whole congregation.
Well, then are we in general agreement with that said, of changing that introductory sentence to say UUCS affirms and promotes the following as our guiding principles or as guiding principles?
I like as guiding principles.
Okay, leave out the word
Yeah,
are.
good.
So it says UUCS affirms and promotes the following as guiding principles, colon.
Good.
And Yeah, and then those, as I read with a little spelling correction in lowercase e, where I had an extra T in there. And then this is what I would forward on to Marilyn. She's probably taking notes already.
Okay. All in favor of the amended bylaw as a proposal? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Motion passes. Okay. Public relations, you want to do that one, Tom?
Yeah, well, I'll read the motion and then we can talk about it if it's seconded. I move the board present the following bylaw amendment to the membership at the annual meeting, which would totally delete existing Article 9, Section 1 and replace it as follows. I'll read what it would be to follows and then we'll talk about why. Section 1, no UUCS member, team, or group may issue written, electronic, and/or virtual statements or media releases using the terms, quote, Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane, unquote, UUCS, quote, unquote, Unitarian Universalist Association, quote, unquote, or UUA, quote, unquote, which implicitly states or implies representation of either the entire UUCS membership or UUA unless either organization has approved such statement or media releases. So I need a second, and then I'll try to summarize.
Second.
Okay, where this came from was raised. Basically, we took the former bylaw, which involved the minister as a first level of approval to use the names, and then ultimately the board had to approve any use of the names of UUA or UUCS. And that caused a difficulty for the Social Justice Council last fall when they wanted to say the UUCS Social Justice Council wanted to sign a petition in support of the Palestinians in the Gaza area. And they couldn't do it because there wasn't time enough to get board approval since we canceled our December meeting. So they couldn't do it. And also the existing language restricted Todd from actually using our name. So we rewrote something that just said that pretty much anybody, Todd, the UUC council, even me as an individual writing to the newspaper and signing my name as UUCS member, that I could do that as long as there was no implication or statement that there was representation of the entire congregation or representation of UUA, unless our congregation had voted on it, unless it was a stated position of UUA. So this was our effort to kind of clean up that. And that language I had in the past, I'd run it by Todd and he was okay with it. Nancy Avery, the Social Justice Council, said that would allow us to do what we couldn't do last fall and probably could do in the future. So that's what we have.
Looks good to me. I think that satisfies and solves the problem, so.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, I think that's similar to other churches I've been in, yeah. So like the Social Justice Council could sign something as a Social Justice Council, but not as the whole church. Unless
Yeah.
they got church approval. And that's usually, that kind of thing is typically okay in other churches.
Right. Okay. Should we take a vote to propose this as an amendment?
Yep.
Okay, all in favor? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, here we go. Motion passes. I think that's it for bylaw amendments, right? Tom, the next item on the agenda is policies and procedures.
Okay, I'll just take them one by one. In the identified place for the 3.1 is that I move the policy and procedures include 3.1 which shall be E, ensure in a timely manner, easy and prominent access by UUCS members to such meetings as are recorded. We need a second to discuss it.
Second.
This has come from, it's coming from me in an attempt to respond to some comments that I have got that some members have gone looking for a board meeting or maybe even an ops team meeting kind of shortly after it took place because they couldn't attend, and that stuff has not been, 2, 3, 4 days later, has not been available for them to look at. And I've, received a couple of 3 calls saying, I can't find it. Where is it? And, then I went to try to look for it. I couldn't find it either. So whether this would really solve the problem or not, it states the board's intent that there be kind of easy and timely access to these kinds of events that have happened that are recorded and available.
I find it personally kind of inappropriate that the board would be requiring other teams to abide by this as a matter of policy governance, and secondly, it doesn't really say anything because it's vague in what the time means, but thirdly, there's a lot of reasons that minutes don't go out. Of course, they're not going to go out 2 or 3 days after a meeting, right? Because they have to be approved a month later at the next meeting. Yes, maybe what you're referring to, Tom. But then there are times where that process gets interrupted as well. So for example, if we don't have a meeting where an employee is sick with COVID, for example, we're not going to be able to meet and approve the last month's minutes. So we'd have to wait for 2 months before those get approved, and then even later than that before they're actually posted. So I find it to be not really a beneficial or meaningful statement in the bylaws myself.
Just in response to that, it wasn't with regard to recorded minutes, because of course those take a couple of months to process through. It was the actual recordings of the meetings, and that is why I use the terminology as are so recorded. But that is vague, because that does imply something that might be in a written format also.
Yeah, and recordings again is a pretty micromanaged thing, and there may be reasons that the recordings don't go up right away. Maybe they have to be processed. Maybe there's other priorities that a team has, that the operations team has, that are getting in the way of doing that. You wouldn't believe the amount of time Rebecca spends each day fielding phone calls that require her to spend much more of her time than she would want doing things that are really outside the scope of her intended work. And that happens pretty regularly. So I just find it, people are doing their best to get their job done. And I think we should leave it up to them to make that happen as they can.
Is it cumbersome to get the recordings up and going, like the next day, or how time consuming is it to make that happen?
I mean, I don't know. I don't do it, but what I know is that if that's all somebody has to do, it's not cumbersome at all. But if there's a lot of things that they have to do, then even if it takes a few minutes, it could be cumbersome. When you take that phone call that, you spend 15, honestly, I answer emails. I'm terrible at answering emails, not because I'm terrible at it, but because sometimes it'll take me 15 minutes to a half hour to respond properly to an email and to go into files and research my answer and to do all that kind of stuff. And I get way too many emails. I can't answer them all. They just get buried and beneath, they just keep getting buried in the mound of emails. So it's, even though something may seem in our minds like it's a simple thing because it shouldn't take much time, it does if you're busy doing lots of other things, and we all have to prioritize what we're going to do with our time.
My question is, what is the magnitude of the problem that this is intended to address? Yeah, how often does someone have a problem about this?
I can tell you only in my case, there's probably been 3 comments made over several months. So if that's the only indication of magnitude, it's very small.
It's occasionally happened to me that I wanted to check on what happened at a board meeting when I couldn't find it. But I can't tell you when the most recent time was that happened.
Lynn, do you have your hand up? Go
I
ahead.
do. I just wanted to add, sometimes it's difficult to find it because of timing on the website, but it doesn't mean it's not possible to find it. It's actually relatively quickly posted to YouTube. And so it's to the recording of the board meeting anyway. And that's a Michelle thing, and she does it as quickly as she can. It's not even a Rebecca thing. But having it posted on the website is where people tend to go looking. So, and it takes a while for that to actually come into play. So I don't think it's too much of a problem. It's more of a problem just knowing where to go to find it. I don't know that people just know, oh, I'll just go to YouTube, the church's YouTube channel, and find the Board of Trustees meeting. It's pretty quickly posted.
Yeah, and our staff is, Michelle is part-time who handles that stuff, so it's not going to happen necessarily the day of or even the day after. The other thing to keep in mind is to Lynn's point, I mean, actually to Doug's point, how big a problem is this should really, I think it's not a major problem. I don't think anyway we need to deal with, but our website is just a monster. It is an absolute beast to try to go through. Way too much information. We made the mistake with it that a lot of people who build websites make. What do we want people to know?
Everything.
Instead of what do people want to know, right? So that is in the works in the plans to switch to another website that greatly simplifies it. And I hope that some of those recordings will be easier to find when somebody actually goes to the website and looks, and not know that they have to go to YouTube and look for a UUCS YouTube page.
Sounds like there's not a lot of enthusiasm on this, and that overhaul of the website, which was told in our last meeting was going to take place this summer, that this probably isn't something that is appropriate at this time. So I would encourage us to come to a vote as soon as possible.
Okay. Let's vote. Shall we add this to our policies and procedures? All in favor? Okay, motion fails. Let's go on to, thank you, Tom, for helping us cut short. Let's go on to the next one. 3.3F.
3.3F. Again, I move that it be amended to read as follows, which amounts to the current F says trustees shall make no judgments of the operations team or staff performance. And I'm suggesting clarification, primarily because of some things that happened in the prior administrations, like 4+ years ago. I'm suggesting adding a sentence, a trustee shall not make any effort to influence the operations team or the manager in pursuit of it or their duties and responsibilities.
Second.
Discussion, thank you. Tom, are we replacing the words in black with the words in blue or just adding them?
Adding, what I'm suggesting is adding to it.
Okay,
You know, in one case, it's making no judgments, like saying to you that I don't like what went on. And the
right.
other is my saying to Rebecca, for instance, I don't like what you're doing. So I'm trying to thinking maybe we need to be more specific so that the various trustees are, really have a policy of refraining from, directly saying this isn't what should be done or something like that.
Well, they're very different sentences. Trustees shall make no judgments is quite different from a trustee shall not make any effort to influence.
Yeah.
Couldn't we just keep on adding sentences here about things we shouldn't be doing or that shouldn't be done? When would we stop?
Well, you keep in mind that a lot of the format of the policy and procedures is not what we should do, but what we should not do.
Right. And these two sentences are constructed in that style, but
Yeah.
and yet we could keep saying things we shall not do.
Oh, sure.
In the way that these two are written, which are pretty you don't do this and you don't do that specific thing, kind of, you know what I mean? Is there another way we could write it if we need to have something about the relationship between trustees and the operations team? I don't know. I don't really know the rest of the context of this one line, I guess. But
In some ways, it seems to me that it's the same sentence or the same point. Although I personally like the second sentence better than the first. It would be a good idea to eliminate the first sentence and just replace it as I think you were sort of asking at the start, Betsy. Because it is a bit redundant, although it's clearer to me.
This is all under the section of the board, of the board's code of conduct, in which it starts out, the board commits itself and its members to ethical, businesslike, and lawful conduct, including appropriate use of authority, period. And then accordingly, A, B, C, D. There's a whole bunch of things there that are all that, like, trustees must avoid, trustees shall not attempt, trustees' interaction with the operations teams must recognize lack of authority vested, blah, blah. So this, it could well be that we could amend this to say, eliminate the sentence that's in black, which is trustees shall make no judgments of the operations team or staff, and replace it with a trustee shall not make any effort to influence.
yeah, I like Todd's suggestion too, because make no judgments is kind of a strange phraseology. The other one's better. No influence.
Well,
Yeah, the only thing it contains that I just realized it contains that the second one doesn't is the word staff or staff performance.
Yeah, true. So how about we replace it with the blue one, but add the operations team or staff?
Yeah, that makes sense. Operations team manager or staff in pursuit of their duties, responsibilities.
Okay, so then amending my motion or restating the motion, it would be to eliminate the existing first sentence of 3.3F and replace it with a sentence that reads, a trustee shall not make any effort to influence the operations team / manager and or staff in pursuit of their duties and responsibilities.
Second.
Let's vote. All in favor? Okay, everybody, unanimous. Here we go. It passed. I'm trying to do that for Maryland. Sorry. Okay. 3.3G.
Yeah, this is something that probably is intuitive, but 3.3G, I move that we add a 3.3G, which shall be the board's executive committee or any three trustees, including the president, may be assigned specific duties, responsibilities, but shall not act on behalf of the board unless pre-authorized by a majority of the board present and voting. And this kind of is in this situation that we're in now about needing a committee. Well, I need a second of this and then I can.
Second.
Okay, so this is kind of in a kind of, my mind came to this when I was realizing that we don't have any clear directive way for us to say that a subcommittee of the three members of the board or the exec committee can act on, when assigned to do something, can act on that. It's kind of intuitive, but the part that is not so intuitive is that under certain circumstances, they could be, if pre-authorized by the board, make judgments on, decisions that the board would ordinarily make.
I find that just as a member in transparency, I find it kind of troubling. I think the board is supposed to make board decisions, and to say to three people, or two people or whatever it is, or four people, you guys have been authorized by the board to make decisions outside of a board process. I don't think our system is made to work that.
I have to answer the front door, but I would say if we drop that sentence off, then we probably don't need this at all, because it basically is covered by Robert's rules about a board appointing a subcommittee.
I don't think we need it at all. I think it is that board decisions are board decisions. The board doesn't assign three people to make a decision. There hasn't been a time when we've done that.
And remind me again, what are the provisions for, say, emergency board meeting? Say there's a decision that needs to be made quickly.
Well, we have rules, but they aren't less than all of the board. It's just mostly about timing, I'm pretty sure. Actually, there might be rules in there about the number of people.
There may be cases where, you can't give 3 weeks time and you just.
We have something in there for that, Dick, but I don't think that's what, that's in the, that's probably in the bylaws, actually, not in here.
Yeah, so if you have a provision for emergency board meetings, and then that could take care of a lot of things. Even a subgroup can just say, well, we'll just call an emergency board meeting so the whole board can discuss it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And we have been burnt by executive committees, and Tom's trying to, in the past, misuse of executive committees, which I think maybe why you're putting this here too, but yeah, I'm with Catherine. I don't think we really need it.
Okay, then if there's, we've all had our say or our piece.
Any other discussion, folks? Shall we vote? Okay, all those in favor of adding this to the 3.3.g as in the document, adding it to the policies and procedures? Okay, no one's in favor, so that one fails. Okay, we're on to the last one.
Okay, this is the sticky one, and it's been discussed in the last meeting and brought up on the agenda for probably, might even have started in the November meeting. So I'm suggesting a proposal to our policy and procedures that would, what I see as resolve an issue, but it may be that we don't want to go this direction. But I'd like to read the motion, have it seconded, and then make a couple of points and then open for discussion. We don't have anything in our bylaws or in our policy and procedures directly addressing publications, but this would be one that would be added at the list of the various 11 items that already address the operations team already, and I move that the policy and procedures include a new item 2.12, which would be 2.12 publications, colon. The operations team shall not reject any event notification published, virtual or electronic, that includes one, a contact who is a UUCS member in good standing as set forth in the UUCS bylaws as verified by the operations manager, and two, a location and or instruction to contact the listed member regarding location, semicolon, further, that the location shall not be cause for rejecting the notice, semicolon, and furthermore, that the notice shall contain information that INUUC may also be publishing a similar notice if such is known to be the case, that is, that members of both congregations may be in attendance.
Second.
Okay, the first 2 points, a contact who's a member is already in the long section of the operations team, as is the requirement to give a location. What is new is that there wouldn't be any restriction on location, which is kind of implied by what's already there. And that secondly, that the same information about an event may be in the INUUC's similar publication or virtual announcement. And that if whoever's giving our announcement knows that to be the case, that they should put in our notice that this same notice is included in INUUC's publications, so that our members could expect they may end up in the same room with INUUC members. And that's the issue that's before the board in this amendment, because the first 2 points are already in several places in the operations team's documents about giving notice and publications and that sort of thing. And I kind of see this issue of whether or not we are going to be able to have notices that advertise the same event is a policy issue that either the board or maybe even the entire congregation needs to deal with, rather than just five people, 3 church members and 2 staff people. So that's my pitch about why this needs to be discussed and possibly here or rejected or reworded.
One part of my confusion, and I'd like to bring up is it seems like to me this is a domain question too. Todd and Rebecca report that this is ops team business, and that we are infringing. I'm using my own terms, but that we are getting into territory in which we have no business. So what is the fact there? Because I mean, that I'm confused about that, and I would like clarification on that first of all.
Yeah, it seems to me to contradict the intention of the change we just made about the board's infringement on operations team business. But secondly, if the board wants to take over the publications or any other operations of the church, the team is willing to do that, but I can quite assure you the team is not going to be willing to have the board micromanage it or how we do operations. That's a violation of our policy governance. Furthermore, the question of INUUCC is I get that there are people that disagree on this, but this isn't going to solve it. It's only going to antagonize it. Right. So for whether some like it or not, some of us were really burned by some of the folks who left to start that church, not all of them, but some of them. And there has not been any healing work over that. And by the way, nobody kicked them out. Nobody says you have to go. They were not the victims in this. They lost an election and disappeared immediately. There was no room for conversation or reconciliation. A lot of us feel like that has to happen. before we're gonna normalize relationships. And people are free to go to INUUC events, free to go to both churches. They're free to come to ours and to our events, but to suggest that we have to advertise those events in our publications to satisfy a few, it seems to me to be as wounding for some as it is inappropriate of the board to create a policy on.
Well, I'd really like clarification on my question, and I don't think that what you're saying, Todd, is exactly what anybody wants to do. It's just, I think there's confusion here is what I'm observing. And a lot of emotion that isn't adding to rational handling of the situation. So could we start with whose domain is it, this policy? Does this policy reside in the policies and procedures, which Tom has pointed out last month, I think, actually is the domain of the Board of Trustees? Or is this strictly something that resides in the operations team's policies? I'd like clarification on that simple question.
This is operations, and it is operations team's policy.
I hear that's your
Under-
opinion. I'd like to.
Well,
hear some others.
I mean, it's not a fact, but that's my opinion. I mean, a lot of things are open to interpretation, but again, as a policy governance church, the board does not narrow in on specific tasks and tell people this is how it's going to be done.
Right.
That's up to those who are responsible for actually carrying out the work. In this case, this is an operational matter. That is my opinion of how to best interpret this.
Got it. Other opinions?
I have thought on this, someone from the outside. It seems like the real question here is, should there be a general church discussion on future relationships with the other church? Was it INUUC, something like that? But, maybe some people think, well, there needs to be a discussion on that. Whether that's the case or not, but it seems to me that that's really more the point, not the actual policies. That should that issue, it's the relationships between the two churches actually be discussed in a general meeting or some other forum like that.
Just kind of in response to that, Dick, it's easy to make a mountain out of a molehill here, in that we're not talking about an interface, a formal interface with the other church. We're only talking about whether event notices of events, for instance, a picnic in the park, or our OWL education for sexual education for young people, which is going on already. It involves 3 churches. Whether a common notice could appear that we'd be giving notice of an event in which other churches, in this case INUUC, since that's a hotspot, would be that same notice would be published in other churches' notices. It's not a big thing about getting together and hugging, kissing, and rubbing, shaking hands and patting each other on the shoulders. It's nothing like that. It's just simply could joint notices.
I guess the question I raise is this trying to narrow it to a real extremely small question actually serving the larger purpose? I mean, this is my
What are we here to discuss?
Yeah,
we're not here to discuss the larger question.
I think that's what you were raising. It seems like there's some much deeper issues here that are the real question, not just that was my point.
The proposal is very, very narrow, and any attempts to make it broader is just simply reading into something that's
well. I know the proposal is narrow, but is that serving the deeper, broader purpose? And I don't know how that plays out in the church, or whether that's how to approach that really. But just That's what it
Well,
sticks with me.
one thing we have heard about, it is a very narrow proposal, but it is, if you just try to take the problem stepwise, like Doug was just trying to help us through, is this a domain issue? There is potentially this other thing, Dick, that you're bringing up that may need a bigger church discussion. Is this tool of adding this policy to the board's procedures the best way to approach that issue? And does it create, and I think it's fairly clear that it does create a domain issue. Todd has spoken to that effect. You know, Doug, it is a matter of interpretation, policy governance, right? How that goes. But this communication policy, which the operations team has a very clear policy on, and it is a day-to-day kind of thing that they do. That's what policy governance says. That team, the operations team, you know, they take care of that, and the board of trustees does not. So my thought would be, I agree with Todd that this, at least with the part that this is not in the domain of the board of trustees, this particular policy. And it's just creating a kind of an issue.
And I'm thinking that if there are people within our church that are interested in what's going on at the other church at INUC, that they can get on their list, on their email or on their website and find out, you know, what's going on there that they might be interested in, that we wouldn't necessarily have to be responsible for posting that information on our site. If people are interested, they can look on their site.
I know Robert's there, and Robert, I'll yield just in response to this. That isn't what the proposal is at all. It's not what they publish and for us to go read it. It's what our publication would be of an event at which they may also advertise that same event. And that if we know that that event is going to be advertised, that we should put in our notice that there may be INUC members there because it's mutually advertised. If we advertise only and they don't, it's not in their publication, then it's just the same as usual. So
I guess I just don't get why it's a problem. But Robert, do you have your hand up for talking?
Yeah, I do have my hand up for talking, and I just wanted to make the point, going back to Doug's question, whose domain? I'm on the ops team. It's the ops team's business, and I don't need to say any more than that.
Call the question.
calling the question usually
If there's
takes
no more,
a vote, but we can
okay.
dispense with that if people agree that it's time to vote.
Shall we vote? Let's vote. Those in favor of including 2.12 in the Board of Trustees policies and procedures, please raise your hand. Okay, we have one in favor. Those opposed?
Oops.
1, 2, 3, 4. 4 opposed. Do I have that right? Y'all help me count. So 2 abstaining.
I'm abstaining.
You're abstaining. 2 abstaining.
Abstained.
2 abstaining. Okay,
Okay.
what does that mean then?
Well, it means
Definitely doesn't pass, but
it essentially an abstention is a no vote because we need to pass this by a majority vote. So the only person voting for it was me. So that's certainly not a majority. And I would like it noted in the minutes that I voted in favor of it, please.
thank you, Tom. Okay. Okay. All right, well, that brings us to, oh, you guys, we're actually a few minutes, we're 15 minutes past the time. Do we, are you guys okay? I guess I need a motion for us to maybe take another, I don't know, probably take another 5-10 minutes to complete our agenda items.
You can
Well,
just ask if there's any objections.
Any objections to another
No.
10 minutes? Lilia, we've ended at 5:30 all year long. I'm just telling you when you weren't here.
I'm sure it's my fault. I'm
Yeah.
the reason.
I'm kidding you. Okay, so let's, hearing no objections, we'll try to power through the last little bit of, we're on item number 12, any unfinished business. We have under this section, the strategic plan, and I think the intent of putting it on the agenda here is to get it into the minutes as a recommendation for the 2024-25 Board of Trustees to take up a strategic plan revision. We learned, I don't know, a couple of board meetings ago that it's a pretty substantial process to do properly. Todd did that when he first came with the board, when he first came to the UUCS. So it took all year, I
Yeah.
think. So,
As we talked, Betsy, we can't actually direct them to do it, but we
No.
can suggest and urge that the next board take it on.
right. And that is our purpose, urge, I guess.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And the next item under unfinished business was the vacant Board of Trustees positions. Moderator, I have at least a temporary assignment for moderator. So, so that's taken care of. I took historian off because there wasn't much point in talking about it right now. And that just brings us to May's meeting. I need a volunteer for the executive committee to make the agenda. Anybody interested in joining that process? Joining Doug and I, we're always there as president, vice president,
And Todd.
and Todd, true, yes. Hey, it's an opportunity to be with Todd and make an agenda. Come on, it's fun.
Yeah. Join
Okay,
us.
I'll volunteer.
Luba, thank you.
Yay.
And our next board meeting is on May 22nd at 4 to 5:30. And we have our, as we discussed earlier in the agenda, a meeting on the 8th at 4 o'clock too. And that one's only an hour long, and that's to deal with amendments from the congregation or the members and logistics for our annual meeting.
Do you, so we would have that regardless, even if there's no amendments, we'd still.
We
meet.
are. We
Okay.
are. We'll just
Okay.
finish it faster if we don't have amendments. That would be my plan. I'll draft a meeting or make sure we have an agenda for the annual meeting before we get together on the 8th.
And Rebecca you'll get in touch with her so she does proper notice for it and all that stuff.
Yeah, okay, sure.
Cool.
All right,
Great productive meeting, everybody.
meeting adjourned.
Right. Bravo.
Bravo.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night.